I'm Kelly Leger.
And we are in Studio One at For the One Studios today. And we have a fantastic guest, good friend of mine. You know him, you've seen him, Randal Reeder.
Oh, yeah, me.
Yeah,
What's
welcome,
up?
Randal.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, we've sat together on many, many different things and chit-chatted.
Bump into each other all over the world.
Yes, very true, very true.
I saw you. I saw in one of your episodes. Our friend that lives up in Willis.
Isaac.
Isaac.
Yes.
And he, I guess y'all met somewhere else.
Yes.
And you and I met at NRB.
Yes.
And it was so. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And then we all lived here, which was weird.
All in Montgomery County.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm super happy for today. To hear. I have got the pleasure of hearing your story a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways, and it never gets old. It's super cool.
Did any of them line up?
No,
was it
there was a few that I was questioning. No.
it's like you tell it. It's like I tell it a different way every time.
Did he ever tell the truth once? No.
No.
Can't keep the story straight.
Yeah, you've had quite the journey though through this entertainment industry. I mean, from acting to wrestling to producing to films, television. I mean, all kinds of things, to even your ministry that you run with Savage.
Save Savage.
Save Savage.
Save Savage. Yeah. See.
Save Savage. Right.
I carry it just so I remember. Like, what was that ministry called?
What did I call this thing?
Yeah. I mean, God's just
too
doing
much
some
brain damage.
Yeah.
From the chair shots.
Yeah, he's just done some really cool things in your life.
Wow.
So I'm super excited to get to share that with our audience today.
Yeah.
I want to hear some wrestling stories. I was a little Hulkamaniac growing up.
Oh, wow. A lot of people were a little Hulkamaniac.
Yeah, they were.
Say your prayers, take your vitamins, all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So why don't you take us back and tell us when or how you got into this industry? I don't know that you ever thought you wanted to be in this industry, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I did actually. I watched. I'm trying to think. What I think really happened was I saw Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
and Jesse Ventura was in there, and he was just so cool. I mean, it was a movie full of cool dudes, and shooting cool guns, and I was like, like that guy was a wrestler, and at that time I'd had a few people over the years, a couple of people over the years, that had said, man, you should be a pro wrestler, and they said I can hook you up with the Von Erichs or the Funks or whatever, just people, because I'm in Texas,
Yeah.
and my parents had racehorses, so we kind of ran in eclectic groups of people, and so I'd had that offer a couple times. And then when that happened, when I saw Predator, I was like, ooh, I started devising a plan. So I actually did what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did before Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did it, but way less successfully. Because I set out to be rich and famous and wound up broken and infamous.
I thought that was going to be like this flex, this brag.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah, he might have modeled his career after mine.
That's great.
So, but I did. I actually, when I had the chance, what happened is I was doing concert security here in Houston, Texas, in the yellow shirts. I was working for Southwest Concert Security. And, I was like 18 years old. I didn't need to sleep. So I'd work at the plumbing shop during the day, and then go do the concerts and the clubs and all that kind of stuff at night. And one day, the boss, Bobby, I think's his name, he said, hey, any volunteers to work at the wrestling matches at the Sam Houston Coliseum? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, and because I grew up watching it with my grandfather on every Friday night and Sunday morning, I think, or maybe Saturday night and Sunday morning. And so anyway, I went, and so first, it's a funny story. I show up, and at the time, so it was probably 99, 1990, and 1990 or so, and I drove a '86 Lincoln Town car. It was black, and I showed up, and I just came from the gym, and I had a bag full of my security clothes. But I was in my gym clothes, and I was kind of just like coming in the back, and I was kind of like running or jogging because I was trying to get there on time. And people just started swarming me going, "Hey, can I get your autograph? What's your name? Which one are you?" And I was like, "Oh, this is cool," And so then I go in, and it was this perfect evening because I go in. I was telling everybody how I thought that it was funny, and they were laughing. And then I got geared up, and they put me ringside. And this guy in a suit, a real tall guy, tall, thin dude, walks up and he says, "Man, you're a big dude. You should be a pro wrestler." I said, "Yeah, that's what everybody says." He said, "Well, I'm not everybody." And he hands me a card and says, "You need to call my dad tomorrow." And it was Ivan Putski's stepson. So he handed me Ivan Putski's business card. And Ivan Putski ran, he ran that promotion, WWA, World Wrestling Alliance. So I called him the next day. And my dad and my grandfather were like, "Well, you need to call him." And I said, and I was about to join the Navy. So I was just like, forget this. I'm going to go join the Navy, be 4 years, get out and have credit and be an adult because, and so I did. And he said, so Ivan answers and he says, "Yeah, I don't know. Class started a couple of weeks ago. I don't know who told you to call, but," he said, "Well, how did you get my number actually?" And I said, your son gave it to me." He said, "Really? Last night?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, how big are you?" I said, 6'8". And he says, "How much you weigh?" I said, 320. He said, "Why don't you come see me this afternoon?" So I literally drove over to Derry Ashford, and I met with Ivan Putski, and I walked in, and Booker T and Stevie Ray were in the ring because they were in the class before me.
Wow.
And Tony Norris, who was All Matt Johnson, was in the class that I went through. So he kind of talked to me. He tried me out a few things, to see if I could tie my shoe, and
Right.
you know what I mean. And he says, "Look, I'll start you if you want to jump in and try to catch up. I'll start you right now." And so I did. I just went to school to do that.
Wow.
And they caught me up, and it was brutal. And I had severely broken ribs before I ever started wrestling, and it went downhill from there.
Wow.
It was a brutal business, but did that for off and on for the first 10 years of my adult life, maybe 11 years. So it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, 18 to 29, I did that. But when I got I ended up getting on TV pretty quickly. By 18, I'd done some TV. By 20, I was really like a star at Global Wrestling Federation, and they filmed in Dallas at the Sportatorium, and it was on ESPN every day at 3:00. So I was probably 19 when that happened, but because I remember going to parties at home, and my class, that I graduated with, were watching me in college, like they right after Young and the Restless or whatever, they'd switch
right,
over
yeah.
and watch, and they were talking about it. And but while I was there in Dallas, there was an audition at KD Studios, and for a movie. There's a lot of auditions there, used to be. And while I was there, all the other wrestlers left, and I said, "Hey, what's the deal here with this school?" And he said, "Man, if you stick around a few minutes, I'll give you a tour." And went through, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a 1-year program or whatever." I said, "Yeah, I can't do that." He said, "We got weekend workshops, just like 3 days." I said, "Yeah, give me a call on that." And so they sent out, because it was before email, they mailed something that said, "This person is coming this week," and this, whatever. And I started studying with Cliff Osmond, who's a great character actor, and been in just hundreds and hundreds of movies and stuff and TV shows. So started studying, and in the class, once you're in a class, the people are like, "Yeah, you're really good. Who's your agent?" I'm like, "I don't have an agent." And they're like, "Oh, you should call my agent or whatever."
Yeah.
And so I got with Actors Etc. is who I went with. Denise Coburn, you remember her? Yeah. And I instantly, like, she swooped me up because I was fairly talented, as an actor. I was at least could do lines and not, you know, and then of course I was so unique. So, and then I just started booking. I booked like a guest star on Walker, Texas Ranger, and some low budget films because it was the Third Coast back then.
Yeah.
Like this was literally the Third Coast,
Yeah.
and it was so. I mean, you couldn't. It's one of those miraculously serendipitous things. If you want, for me to start as an actor, I started in the perfect way, in the perfect state, the perfect city. Well, maybe at least the perfect state.
Yeah.
And it was that's how I got into the business. So when I went to LA the first time, I moved out there for like a year or something in '97, or at least 6 months or a year. And I mean, the third agent I talked to, I got. Never happens, but I had a reel. I mean, I had 2 guest stars. I had multiple, different roles. And then I was unique. Even that though, it was funny. I went with an agent out there, and I went to see her, and she says, this sounds morbid, but I had a guy like you, because she was known for character actors, and she said, but he just passed away.
Oh.
And literally, so she said, let me look at your reel. And then she called me back that afternoon. She said, I liked it so much, I went ahead and submitted you for a 90210. I'm like, awesome. Then only problem I see is you don't have enough headshots and resumes.
Yeah.
I'll be there later to fix that problem. And so it was kind of like that. But it was, of course, that's a 10-year condensed, or,
Sure.
97, and we're talking, that was 7-8 years after being in the business.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so it sounds easy, but I had those years before I went to LA. So,
Yeah.
For sure.
so
Wow.
Yeah.
but that's kind of how it happened.
Cool.
It was wild.
Wow.
It was wild.
Yeah, and then how long did you live in LA, or did you just live there short term and then come back here and still go and get casted out there, because you were casted all
Right.
the time from there?
Well, no, I went there in '97, and the wife hated it. She said, I will never live here. I said, I mean, we would go to Thousand Oaks, and what about here? Would you? She's like, I don't know, maybe here, but I'll never, she just hated it. And so I ended up moving back here. She hated it, and then I ended up going back into pro wrestling again. I mean, I kind of retired. I was in and out of wrestling, so for 11 years, and it looked like I was gonna. I almost signed to WWF a couple times, WCW. I was working for Shawn Michaels for 2 years in San Antonio, grooming his kids. And so some of the stars there now are kids that I gave the first match to, or first TV match to. And so that looked like that was going to happen. And then WCW went under. Vince, he won the war, and he ended up with WCW and ECW and all that. And when that happened, I mean, there was no room, because now everyone had to fit into one company. So Goldberg and people like that were flooding Japan, so I couldn't even go to Japan. And it was just like, okay, God doesn't want me to be a wrestler. So
Right.
I just kind of, at that time, I'd told my wife, she was my first wife, mother of my children, and I said, look, if I'm not rich and famous by the time I'm 30, I will quit and get a real job. Because I mean, imagine a young wife, 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was working during the day, auditioning, doing all that. It was a mad schedule. And so when that happened, I went to work, at just like Union Plumber and Reliance Stadium for 9 months, the big stadium, and all that. And then eventually, I guess around 2004, I booked, because I kind of was out of it, but I mean, you get auditions every now and then, you book something every now and then. Well, finally, when I booked Sin City, Robert Rodriguez, and I was up there with Mickey Rourke on that scene, and then I booked Idiocracy, but back to back. So I think I had 2 weeks off between those 2 movies, and Idiocracy I was on set for like a month, like it was 4 weeks, and at that time, over that period, even with the wife, I was like, look, it's now or never. Like, I mean, I've got 2 big movies. I have to go to LA. Do you want to go with me? And you and the kids and me all starve and eat sandwiches together, or do you want to go live up in East Texas behind your mom? And she said, I'm gonna go live behind Mom. So
Yeah.
I mean, so if you ever want your kids to not come back, don't give them 2 acres behind your house.
Yeah.
And a house, because it's too easy for them to say, no, I'm gonna live with my mom. So you gotta make it difficult.
Right.
So
right.
so anyway, that marriage didn't last. We ended up because I went out there to LA in '04 after Sin City and Idiocracy. Pretty quickly, I started bouncing and things like that, which led to some craziness that we won't really get into, but bodyguarding and all kinds of things. And but until I started, very quickly, because of Idiocracy, when I was on that set, Mike Judge I'd cracked him up one day. I have a picture of it. The stills guy took a picture of him laughing at my joke, and because we were all, like, me and the cast, we're kind of main cast, we're all there, Luke and Terry and Maya and Sarah, and Mike's laughing because I'd said something redneck funny, and it cracked him up. And he says, man, I got to get you on King of the Hill sometime. And I was like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And so he later, he pulled me aside a couple days later and said, hey, I heard you say you're moving to LA. I said, yeah, I'm moving right after this is over. And he says, well, call me in September. I'll put you on King of the Hill. And I was like, I will do that.
Okay.
And so in September, I called him, and he says, okay, I'll call you back. And like 2 weeks later or something, my agent's like, hey, King of the Hill just called and booked you on a episode, like no sides or anything, no audition. I'm like, that's my dog. He's just a good guy, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I went in, and it was funny because I went in and John and them, like the producers, his producer partners, Dave and John, they were kind of rolling their eyes like, oh gosh, another one of Mike's friends. That's how I felt. I felt like I was, oh man, what am I doing here? And but I did it, and then they pulled me aside before I left, and they said, hey, could we get you in next week to redo one that we didn't like? I'm like, yeah, it sucks to be that guy, but I'll redo his stuff. And then I ended up doing like 20 of them or something. It was kind of crazy. It was so it opened up. It's just different. I don't know. I'd have to look at IMDb. I think there's 11 or 12 on IMDb, but I did more than that. Wow. There's I think it was just what they call it is it's kind of a utility voice, because it's just basically non-recurring guest stars. Mm-hmm. So I would be like, well, there was one that I remember, Rolo, I think was the name, and I remember this because I performed on camera, or on camera, however you want to say it, next to, it was me and John Goodman's were these characters of these we were the animal control specialists, and a python had gotten, like Bobby's python had gotten into the sewer. So then we were like not catching it intentionally, trying to jack up the budget for next year so we can make more money and all this kind of stuff. And Dale was like disappointed, but it was me and John Goodman, and it was so amazing because he's such a hero of mine as a big man who's made it. I mean, he's Coen Brother movies, all this stuff. I mean, he's a legend, and he's an amazing actor. And so I worked with him, but I never met him. Wow. Because we weren't ever in the studio at the same time.
Shared a scene, but never saw each other.
Yeah. So I did one with Macho Man Randy Savage and Dietrich Bader, and me and Dietrich were in the theater, or in the studio at the same time. But Randy came in later or something. So, but it, so in the show, it's, it's me going, yeah, and then Randy going, or whatever, and all this stuff. But so it looks like we're there together, but it's, it's a cartoon, so you really don't have to have you there.
Yeah, for sure.
So we can't ask you what was it like to work with John Goodman? Like,
I can't.
I don't really know.
No, I've worked with some. I mean, now I'll tell you. Well, that particular show. I mean, it's so many, from Johnny Knoxville's and to just even the, we're talking. Just the normal cast of Toby Hoss, amazing. Just Stephen Root, you know, I mean, the cast is, you know, Katie Seagal. You know, I mean, she was there, so you know, I was there with eating lunch with her. You know, it was a wild experience. But one of my coolest Hollywood stories ever is I was, you know, in the green room for a table read. We'd do a table read on Wednesday, and then we'd shoot it on Friday or something, record on Friday, or vice versa. And so I was at the big table, and I get there early because I don't want to be late because I don't want to screw this gig up.
Right.
You know, I'm the low man on the totem pole. And then also they had a good crafty, so I'm just like,
There you go.
I'm like pigging out on like watermelon and whatever. And, you know, I'm Poe. You know what I mean?
right,
I'm just like,
right.
eat as much crafty as I can. So yeah, I'm sitting there, I'm chowing down, and nobody's there. And the door opens, and, you know, twice that far, like 20, 30 feet away, I see Tom Petty walking in.
Nice.
And I didn't realize, because I didn't even pay attention. I didn't even know about IMDb back then.
Sure.
And I didn't know that he played Luann's, he was a series regular. He played Luann's cousin, or Luann's boyfriend. And so he comes walking in, and he walks down and sits, like pulls out the chair across from me, sits down and sits his bag down or whatever. And he says, "Hey, I'm Tom." I'm like, yeah,
I guess
you
so.
are, you know.
Yes, you are.
And you know, it's funny because I never get rattled around actors, or you know, I've never get that
Right.
starstruck. But with musicians, you know, especially, I mean, even not, maybe most musicians I wouldn't, but that's Tom Petty.
Right, yeah.
Like that's Tom Petty.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was super cool, and
Well,
so
that
worked
was
with
super
him,
cool.
and I kind of, you know, TP was kind of my buddy. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's pretty wild to. It
Yeah.
doesn't even feel real at this
Wow.
point. It's so long ago. It's like,
Right,
it doesn't
right.
even feel like it's real.
I feel like everything I'd say to him would be like, Last Dance with, I
Yeah.
mean, Free Fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd just be naming all those titles.
Oh, it's completely that way, man. It's completely that way. It's that way when I met Billy Gibbons. It was that way too. I was just like, "I'm so sorry, I never do this, but I'm from Texas and you're the Reverend Billy G." You know, it was just awesome. So, but,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, but
Super
it's been a
cool.
good career. It's you know, you know, in an hour it sounds way cooler than it has, you know, because it's,
Sure.
you know, it's 30 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've got an IMDb page that probably some of my friends who love me would murder me for if someone said, if you kill him, you get that, you know. But at the same time, you know, I don't know if they do the 30 years it took to get to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a rough
And
business.
it is a rough business. And
Yeah.
it's like in this industry, you only talk about, like, everybody just wants to hear about the high points, you know,
Yeah.
and like the cool points. But that is like, I don't know, 1% of this. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, there's so much other that goes
Yeah.
into it to get to that one shiny moment. So you can't be in it for the shiny.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be in it because you truly love the craft.
Yeah.
And you love the people and you love the industry and all of that because, or you have a calling on your
Right.
life to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Something like that
Yeah.
because it's just such a small portion of it.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it's to hear a career over 30 years, there's a lot that goes in between that.
Before we booked our first production company, we had a commercial production company, still do, in Southern California. We were going after advertising agency work. We were making hundreds of calls every day. We'd start calling 6 a.m. in California because it was 9 on the East Coast calling agencies. And when we look back at our data, because we track everything in Excel, it took us 25,000 calls.
Wow.
Not just calls, talking to the right person, asking them,
Yeah.
are you looking for a production company, before we got our first big job.
Yeah. Y'all listen to that, because that's what everybody, you know, everybody wants to get in. Or and now that I produce, you know, everyone wants to, hey, I got an idea. It's like, cool.
Oh.
You know?
Right.
And my idea, my story with that, and I usually share them with them. I was on the first movie I ever did was called Witness to the Execution with Tyne Daly and Sean Young. And I remember I was sitting in Video Village watching, you know, what was going on, and I was like, hey, are you the producer? And he's like, yeah, I'm producer. I said, man, I got a good idea for a movie. He says, yeah, kid, everybody's got a good idea for a movie. Gets up and walks off.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, you know? So, and then like a few years later, the same guy, but he looked totally different. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, like the same,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
it's a producer. He's not the same guy,
Right.
but I said, by then I had a script written. So I'm like, okay, you know, so I was like, hey man, you the producer? He goes, yeah. And I said, I got a really good script. And he said, and this is a totally different guy, but he looks at me and says, kid, you can swing a dead cat in the air around your head in Hollywood, and you'll hit 10 people with a good script. And he walks off, and I was like, oh man. So then I had to go make a movie, you know. Then you go there and you get distribution. Yep. You're like, hey, I got a great movie. He's like, yeah, everybody's got a great movie.
You're like, oh
you know?
my God.
Like, what? How does this happen?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, it's
right.
just it's
You're
so.
right.
And then so
Yep.
people will come up and go, hey, I got a good idea, and I help people,
Yeah.
and I partner up with them and all that. But and then they'll be like, wow, you know, I thought it would happen by now. I'm like, dude, it's been like 4 months.
Oh,
I'm like, call me in
Oh.
10 years.
exactly.
I mean, you know, Deadpool, like this, you know, Ryan Reynolds was attached. You know, the creator of Deadpool was attached. You know, and great writers, and it took them 5 years to get a green light. You know,
Right.
I mean, and that's with A-listers, and
Yeah.
you know,
Sure.
it's just it's such a brutal business.
It
It
is.
takes so long.
It is.
So yeah.
Yeah, when you look at films and you think, how long was that in, like, the inception and the concept to get to fruition of seeing it on the theater screen, right? If they even make them to theaters now,
Yeah.
if it's not streaming, whatever,
Right.
but a finished product. Then you take into consideration how many films that get that far, go through production, and never make it through post and
They're
distribution.
just a statistic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I
it's
know.
another staggering
It's
number.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
how many things I've done that aren't on IMDb.
Yes,
You
this
know
is
I
what
mean?
I'm
Like,
saying.
maybe they're there and they've been pulled off, or maybe they never made it, and
Yeah.
like I don't even know, because I'll do stuff like I remember when I moved to later, you know, like in '08, I was out in LA, and in '08 the writer strike was happening, so it was just killing everybody, and my second wife was a makeup artist, as my third wife. But anyway, my second ex-wife was a makeup artist, and I told her, I said, you know, I'd done a movie. They'd flown me out to Louisiana, to Shreveport, to do a movie, and I said, you know, we should move there because they're doing like 30-something movies this year, and you'll work on bigger movies, and I'll work as much and on bigger movies. They're already flying me out to do stuff, and there's nothing happening here right now with the writer's strike, and we can always come back. So we did. And I think she still lives in Louisiana. And then I did a bunch of movies in Louisiana for those next couple of years. And then I moved back to LA. But so, you know, I was there, and I remember one of the projects, you know, I did, like the first project I did, but I had forgotten about it because it never happened. It was a pilot, but it never happened. So a couple years later, or several years later, I was talking to the film commissioner. We were just having drinks or something at a mixer or something. And somebody had mentioned Between Two Ferns. What's his name? You know, Zach Galifianakis. And I was like, man, I love that guy. I'd sure love to work with him. And she just cracked up laughing. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'd like to work with him. She goes, that's so funny. And I was like, what's so funny? She said, you did work with him, the first movie you did here. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, Speed Freaks, remember? And I was like, Speed Freaks. Oh, that was him. But it was before he was famous. So I literally had scenes with Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't
Wow.
remember him because he wasn't, I mean, it was
Yeah.
Zach
5 years later, he was Zach
Yeah.
Galifianakis,
Right,
but
right.
back then I didn't know who he was.
Right.
You know, and sorry, Zach, I didn't know.
Right.
But
right.
you probably don't remember me either.
So there's that.
So yeah, but yeah, it was so wild because you forget about stuff. Because again, that was something with Zach Galifianakis that went away.
Right.
Yeah.
It just never happened. It's not on IMDb, you know. But I did it because the film commissioner clowned me for my
Yeah.
memory, you
Yeah.
know, or lack thereof. So yeah.
That's
So
funny.
it's just a crazy business.
Oh yeah.
It's
It
a-
is.
And it's just, it takes so long, and it's just so, a lot of times, you know, people ask me, like, hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? And I said, man, I'm just busy, bro. I'm just tired. I'm busy. And they're like, well, at least you're making money. I'm like, you're busy. You're working. You're making money. I'm like, no, I'm a producer, bro. Like that, you don't understand. Like, I was thinking about it today with the ministry. I was like, man, I have really been primed for decades now for the ministry, because I've been working for free for 10 years at least.
Right.
You know, because most of the time you're working for free until something funds, and then you get paid back for it.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Or maybe.
You know?
Right. In hopes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a crazy business.
It is. That leads us to what's now and what's to come.
Well, a few years ago, I was just like done. I was just done. I'd done a series for PureFlix. I don't know when, probably 14 or something. I'd seen, I'd changed my whole trajectory when I watched Machine Gun Preacher, the movie on Netflix. We're just, me and my writing partner were writing some like horror movie, really cool one actually. I think it's called Tusks, and it was just like, it's like Jaws on land, but a 1,800-pound wild boar killing stuff, And it's still a cool movie. We still totally need to do it. But we were watching it, and we were writing that, and I was just like, man, I'm tired. Let's just watch the movie. And we watched, Machine Gun Preacher, and I was just like moved. And I said, man, that's the movie I wanted to make forever. Like not that story, but
right.
That's the kind of movie I've been wanting to make my whole life. And so I said, let's just start making faith-based movies, because there was, by then, the Kendrick brothers had started making money with them, and it's like now there is a market for it. Yeah. And so we kind of adapted a movie called a script called The Baptist, and to made it a little more faith-based than it was, because it was just a cool movie with a little faith. And then I said, we got to get to PureFlix. They've just made a bunch of money with that God's Not Dead. And then, I don't know, a year later, whatever, 6 months later, I get the first audition I had ever gotten in my life for anything Christian. I mean, it just never, there wasn't much anyway.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And then I was union, so that probably knocked me out of a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I just had never gotten an audition, and it was for PureFlix's first series for their streaming platform. It was called Hitting the Brakes. And so I ended up becoming like a series regular, so I was in all 10 episodes. And that happened, and they looked at The Baptist, but it wasn't for them. And I was just like, that didn't happen. And I was just like, you know what, I don't know, I'm just done with Hollywood, And I just remember I was driving out, I was back in Texas a little bit, and I was quite a bit, and I was driving one day, and I said, God, I just want to work for you. Maybe I'll just go raise money for, for Christian film, because that's the problem. We would all have we would have already made 10 movies together since we've known each other 2 years, But the money is always the problem. I said, maybe I'll just go raise money. I'm not good at raising money, but nobody's good at raising money. I'm just going to go raise money, And then that's where, God called me a saved savage, and ended up making me do this bar ministry. But, that's all I was just telling him. I said, I just want to get up and work for you. Yeah. That's it, and that's really what I want to do. So I just want to make movies that like my mom can be proud of, and at least God's not ashamed of. I'm not going to say all my movies are going to totally please him, but because I'm going, but I think so, because I'm going after the world. I want to go after the world. So that's really what I want to do. Sons of Thunder was kind of a start in that direction, even though it's PureFlix, and they're kind of, they would, they slapped my hand a lot and told me no a lot, and I pushed the envelope more than they probably wanted it to be, but we did that, and so that's. But
that being said, was it not the most popular?
I think
watched.
I think
PureFlix
I believe it's number one. I've been told it's number one still, and so hopefully we'll do another season of that, and. And then, that's what I really want to do, is the same stuff you want to do. Just, reach the world, You know, not be too churchy. I can't be too churchy because I'm just not too churchy.
Right.
I mean, I would love to do the Kendrick Brothers type movies if I was a nice guy, and if I was like an upright dude. But you know, I've got tattoos in my lip. You know, I mean, so I'm just not really a churchy guy. So, you know, I don't know. So maybe, but yeah, I feel like I've been created to do that.
Yeah.
I really do. I feel like I've been created to do that. And, you know, our ministry is a bar ministry, and we go after, you know, the real savages that the church forgets. And that's really ultimately what I want to do with movies and TV shows and all that. But we'll see. You know, I don't mind working for PureFlix.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to. So, you know, but, you know, that's kind of next, you know, is to continue doing that. You know, we've got a streaming platform that we've built, Americonic.com, and we're at soft launch. You know, we haven't really launched, but we're uploading content. I'm reading emails and watching content today, and so, you know, we're getting close to really making a real launch there, which is going to be interesting because it's not PureFlix, but it's not Netflix. It's really in the middle, that going after 80% of America that just wants to tune in, be entertained, and not be offended as a Christian or an American, you know?
Yeah.
So doing that. And interestingly enough, you've told me a couple of times, and it's really peed me off because you're like, no, you need to be the good in Hollywood. And I'm like, no, sweetie, you dance with the devil. You don't change the devil changes you. And but it seems like God is putting me back in the belly of the beast right now. There's some stuff coming up that isn't Christian, and you know, that I'm doing and moving towards, and which, you know, it's always like, really, Lord, do you want me doing that and this? Like, this is two opposites.
But you're the same no matter where you go. You know, people say to me all the time, like, oh, you're just making Christian films, or you want to make Christian films. And I'm like, no, I am a Christian. Yeah. Like, I am a Christian. Like, I love Jesus. He's my best friend. But that's me, you know, and I support and go a lot of places that maybe that's not what they know or what they do. I'm not going to not go there because we're not the same. Right. I'm still going to go and be me. Yeah. And I think that's what God calls us to do, you know, is take our gifts and talents into all of the world. Yeah. Not just the ones that look like us. Right. And I think that's that's important to me, to go into all of the world and sit with all of the world, not just where I feel comfortable or what looks exactly like me. Yeah. You know, and I think He's given us gifts and talents. He's given you a phenomenal gift in acting. You know, He's given you a great platform to do that. He's opened amazing doors for you over the last 30 years of you walking through that, and you're so right. I think in certain environments, it's hard to uphold your morals, your ethics, you know, the way that you are. It's funny, I took a good friend of mine the other day with me into some Hollywood type things, and in the first 2 hours, they looked at me and were like, and I was like, I get it. Is your spirit like, like, get me out of here in certain things? And I was like, don't be afraid of that. Yeah. Like, I understand, but I do believe that we're called to be the light and the good in the midst of the dark. And I think it takes all of us supporting each other to do that.
Yeah, I have a new friend that works at a studio I won't name, and she was telling me, you know, just like going on set, and she's that person that nobody can really understand. Like, they'll start talking to her, and pouring out their hearts, and then talking about all kinds of stuff. Like, this psychic woman told me this and all this kind of stuff, and she's sitting there going, oh, like, Lord, please do you want me to say something or not? And it's funny, most of the time God has her stay quiet, but then they'll just be like, I don't understand why I talk to you so much, and and I don't even know if I like you, and and it's just weird because I mean, she's really, it is so demonic, in Hollywood. It's so interesting because someone asked me, about it, and it's recently, and it's like it's a different kind of devil though. It's a very subtle Satan,
It's like the new movie that just came out.
Nefarious?
Yep.
I haven't seen it yet.
It is fantastic. It is
Yeah,
fantastic.
I can't wait.
Give yourself 24 hours in your spirit and your mind to go like, what was that I just watched?
Yeah.
How does? I mean, it is so good.
I watched a podcast about it with the writer and like this other guy.
Yeah,
and,
the producers,
Yeah,
writer, director, producers. Yeah, great. They are two God-loving individuals that have been out there for 30 years as well, and have such a good eye at how to tell stories that are girded in Scripture
Right.
from a totally different perspective than
Sure.
what you would think.
That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
The Gordy Bunch, who's kind of like the mayor of, almost your mayor, if there's no mayor in the Woodlands.
Right.
But he told me, because I was talking to him about doing, I want to make R-rated Christian films, and of course that's a door slammer for most everybody,
Right.
I mean, and then thankfully he said something that I could take away and steal that from him, because he says, yeah, we do covert ministry and overt ministry. So sometimes it's overt, and I was like, wait, what did you just say? And he explains, well, like this movie over here was not really a Christian movie, but it's got Christ in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's covert ministry. That's so much better. Like less people go, what?
Yeah.
So now I can call it covert ministry. That would be an R-rated Christian film to me. Something that goes out there and, or it doesn't have to be R for the sake of R. I'm just saying, like,
Sure.
Machine Gun Preacher, things like that were R, that they touched my soul, and
That's
changed
nefarious.
my life,
It's
and
a rated R.
that's what needs to happen. These horror movies and all. I mean, so many horror movies are almost Christian movies anyway. I mean, Annabelle and all those, they're almost like they're just. I mean, I've never even watched them, but I've heard.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I really
right.
hate.
Oh,
I really hate horror movies.
Oh, gosh.
I watch some with my wife because she likes it, but she won't watch them unless I'm there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, that's just not fun. Like, I don't even like them. It's like, so I've got to start making her watch things.
Yeah.
That she doesn't want to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's that's my that's really what to me the world, which you can say the devil or just the world. The world has trained me for 30 years to hopefully do what I'm about to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's
and
good.
it seems like that's what's happening. But it is a to be in the world and not of the world. There should be a lot more in the Bible about like more examples of how to really do that, because it's tough. I mean,
It
some
is.
people say, "Oh, that's easy," So there should be a handbook about that. It's like there is the Bible. It's like, yeah, no, I mean like something specifically more like, because it's tough, to go out there and be relevant and in the world and not of the
it.
world, because it's very hard to get out there in there and not get dirty. And like with our ministry, we walk that razor's edge, all the time. And the truth is, we're gonna screw up, and we're gonna get muddy when we shouldn't.
It's tricky when we haven't seen a model for something, and in
Yeah.
film we have never seen a model
Yeah,
for it, and
Yeah.
so we're
Mavericks.
we're the pioneers.
we're the pioneers.
Now
Yeah,
there's an
Yeah.
army that's rising up.
Yeah.
That's right.
That who is grounded in
Yep.
truth.
Yes.
Truth is not a moving target.
Right.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, you have your truth and I have my truth. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's actually not a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
Truth.
truth.
Correct.
And it's like, and so, we're going down a whole wonderful path here. I love this.
Sure.
But, Scripture tells us that the truth sets free. So it
Right.
stands to reason if the truth sets free, then there's a lie that brings you into bondage.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that will bring you into bondage. It's a lie believed, something that's a non-truth. And it could be simple. It could be cultural. It could be a saying. Well, no, such and such does this, and I do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
was that truth, though? And that could be but that's a thing you believe your whole life.
Yeah.
And you make all your decisions based on that one little cultural statement.
Preach,
and you're
brother.
like, wait a minute now. You've just held yourself back dozens of times because you're bad thinking.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get all that truth, like, and then, you know, at the same time, take all that skill set, because what we've done is we've had one or the other, but not both.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. You're right, because we've had, you know, even the Kendrick brothers, for example, like huge fans, but they'll sit there and say, we're not filmmakers, we're ministers, like, you know, I mean, or I don't remember what they say, like they're making that, you know, they're not.
That's what they're supposed to be making.
Yeah, they're not. They're making.
That.
So they know that they're doing. Now, but they do reach the world. But they're, you know, they are preaching to the choir in a sense of, in the sense that they're, you know, they're making Christian Christian content for Christians.
And I think
it's starting to shift. You know.
Yeah, I am super grateful for them. Just as I was listening to KSBJ. You know, I'm super grateful for every Christian artist that sings straight up.
Right.
I'm singing the Word of God. Like, as I'm driving to work, I am literally singing the Word of God. I think that is great. I can switch that and turn it to singing crazy music as well, and enjoy good old throwback songs.
But it's a pretty good example. Christian music, so I'd gotten away from Christian music for, you know, a decade or so, which... imagine that. My behavior had changed substantially for a decade or so. But anyway, so next thing you know, I'm like, you know, getting back really tighter with the Lord. It changes what I want to listen to, and then I tune it in. And I'm like, whoa, who is this? Zach Williams? Who is this? You know, it's like, I mean, the third day was there when I was going out of my Christian phase or of music phase, and there, you know. But, like, man, there's some good Christian music.
Yeah, there is.
So, you know, it's starting to, you know, like film is shifting to where it's like, you know, those pioneers, because the Kendrick brothers and all those people are pioneers too, because they went out there, they broke the box office to where we're like, oh, now we have, because of that, now we might be able to raise the money to do this. And, you know, maybe we won't get to that $46 million opening weekend, but we can, if we get to 15, then we're happy, you know, and, or, you know, so, or maybe we do get to 46 million, you know, and because they raised that bar. So now, because of that, we can start, you know, raising the storytelling and quality bar, you know, and then you have the brothers, it's not they're Kendricks. I mean, they start with a K. Oh man, I'm so huge fans of theirs, but you know, that did Jesus Revolution and all that.
Yes.
I just can't remember the names. Yeah, I've been hit in the head too many times. So, but man, I mean, they're just crushing it. They're awesome. I mean, I Can Only Imagine, all that. I mean, man, they're just, you know.
Yep. Underdog.
I mean, they're so good.
Yeah.
You know, and then that raises the bar. You know, now that happens, and now someone else can come in and go, oh, wait a minute, let's come in here. I mean, or like the what was it?
That faith and family films can make money,
right?
You know, and that was what we needed to happen in the industry. And you know, I think that we are blazing a new trail, but I think more now than ever, there is an audience. There is a true audience. Actually, I think the audience has always been there.
They're always there, but they've been underserved.
I think the distribution model has not given us leverage to use it.
Yeah.
Distribution holds the cap on what we see as a society.
Yeah.
You know, this is going all the way off, but Elon Musk just said the other day with Twitter, he was like, I think I want to sell this thing. This is way too emotional, way too like all it goes into this media world is just like, let me go back to space. Let me go back to dealing with alien stuff before I deal with this media world, because this is insanity, right?
No, it is insane.
It is true. There's just the manipulation that happens in the media world is crazy. What is it? It's smoke and mirrors, right?
Well, it's also, I mean, you have to look at who's, you know, the distribution is the problem. You know, someone was this redneck old man was asking me, he's like, man, I want to put some money in some movies, but how do I know if I put that in there, it's not going to be some left wing, you know, BS? And I was like, well, you have to. I mean, there's a lot of ways you have to secure that. You have to make sure that the script is good, and then you got to make sure that it's the right director and the right producer, so that they don't pervert the script. And then the distribution or whoever's funding it, because whoever's funding it might say, well, I won't fund that unless you do this, you know. And I said, so, you know, there's multiple ways that it could go sideways, so you just have to control all that. And he goes, well, you do all that, does them kind of movies make money. And you know, it was there years ago, and I said, I don't know, did God's Not Dead and American Sniper make any money this year? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, there's a huge audience for it. You know, he's like, well, then why ain't all them movies coming out there all crazy, lefty, weird old stuff? And I mean, this dude makes $80 million a year and just talks just like that. You know, it's hilarious. And I said, well, I mean, you know, that's easy. And it's funny. It rolled off my tongue like, I don't know. I never thought it before.
Right.
I said, well, that's easy. I said, you know, liberal money finances liberal projects. If you want to change that, put conservative money behind conservative projects. And I was like, did I just say that? And my buddy was like, wow, that's awesome. You know, where'd you think about it? Like, I don't know, man. But, you know, and that's really why Americonic and all this, I mean, you know, I've started companies since then based off of just that rattling off of my tongue. I was like, oh man, I never thought about that, you know. But that's really, you know, to marry that kind of money to that kind of projects, you know, it's very difficult. I mean, you think about, you know, God's Not Dead. It was PureFlix, so they you know, they have a different model of who invests and all that kind of stuff, and they, you know, they rolled the dice on that, and they won, you know. You know, as far as American Sniper, I mean, that was Clint Eastwood. He can do whatever he wants, whether they like it or not. You know, they'll give him the money to make whatever movie he wants. So, you know, everybody's not Clint Eastwood. So, you know, occasionally someone will slide through there, like a Mel Gibson or somebody who's just, you know, or you know, Mark Wahlberg, you know.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'll finance it. This movie needs to get made. So then he calls up Mel Gibson and goes, hey, I just bit off a chunk. How do I do this? Can you help me?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what we have to do. You know, and that's why we're you know, we're getting shot up because we're the first off of the boat, you know. So it's wild.
I heard someone talk about what we're doing kind of like this. We see a village in the middle of the bush of Africa. Nobody has ever seen it before. They've heard about it. People have talked about it, but no one's ever seen it. But finally someone takes out their machete and starts hacking through the jungle, and they hack and they hack and they hack. Everybody's like, I don't know, he says he sees this thing, but he's going in that direction. So we're just all following, and they hack, and finally he gets to this place, and there it is. It's the village he always talked about. And he goes, wow, everybody said that this always existed. Everybody has said this was a thing, and now here it is. And it's like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's what we're doing. We're pioneering something we've all saw, we've all thought about, we've all felt, we've all heard about. And it takes someone to go hacking through the jungle to get there to do it. Now, that's the hard part. But the coolest part is not even the town, the village that you end up finding. It's the path that you left behind you for everyone to follow.
Right.
And they don't have to hack through.
Well, they do, but they do. That's the thing. We're going through that path, but we've got to make the path wide enough for all of us. You know, so we're still have to hack our path, but at least we know we know that city exists. We know that's where I'm so thankful to like the Kendrick brothers and all those guys for you know, showing that it could be done. You know, it's like, okay, there's an audience here, and now we're just like, okay, now, you know, we've got to serve that audience. And then there's crazy people like me that are saying, yeah, I want to come as close to offending that audience as possible, that they still show up, because I want to go after these people that don't want to see it, you know. And that's the tough part. That's you know,
I think that's the new lane.
That's the new lane.
The new lane.
That's kind of carving out a new path.
It is. Path. It's the new lane is, as of right now, you know, when you go, okay, I've got a Christian film that makes you right here. Okay. Then you go, okay, I've got a secular film that makes you over here.
Right.
And then if you say, well, I got a real story that has God in it.
Right.
And, well, sorry, that doesn't fit either one of those. So I don't know what we're going to do with that one. That's out. So either you make Hallmark Jesus, or you make bloody gore, horror.
Right.
Which one do you want?
Yeah, Netflix or PureFlix.
All of us are saying we don't want either one of those. We want to try to make a lane between, and we believe that the audience is willing and ready to do that. done right.
Right.
And I think the what has happened in the past is a lot of the people that have tried to do that, maybe it hasn't worked out so well, and everybody wants to follow what's proven.
Sure.
Nobody wants to bet
Sure.
on what might be.
Right.
And therefore your budgets on the what we are trying to do haven't been
Right.
there, and I'm hoping that there's a large amount of us now. I mean, pretty much everybody I meet in the industry as of right now are all saying the same thing, that have come from the faith side of
Right.
things. Or if you were in Hollywood and you're like, I want to do some things that also show what's important to me too, which is my
Right.
faith.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be on the nose. That's like too far, like you said.
Right.
I'm not that preachy kind of person, so it's best that I don't go try to do that, because that's not even me, and I need to stay
Right.
true to who I am. So I just need to make a movie that looks like me, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that out there.
Jesus was literally the model.
Yeah.
So, in one sense, to one audience, he would preach the very clear kingdom of God. But to entirely different audience, he would speak
Tell a vague
in a
a
parable.
parable, yeah, a
And it
total
was
story.
so much subtext.
Yep.
You had to lean in, but it was
100%.
a different audience.
Yep.
And he had to, it was the same kingdom, but he had to address it in a different way.
Right.
A deeper way, a more creative way, a way that would unlock their hearts, because their hearts were closed off.
Yeah.
Right.
So something had to trigger their hearts to lean into, what are you really saying?
Yeah.
Something had to happen. So it's just,
And he would go to the synagogue and preach and get kicked out or whatever, or kick them out. And then he would, hang out with the drunks and the crazy people, the sinners, they're like, wait, are you even the one? Because you're like looking like a wine bibber and a glutton to me, So it's yeah. I mean, he was the model, and I think that's what's got to happen is for a long time people have been leaning into, yeah, exactly. It's because there's Christian or there's secular, and now there's a lot of. I will say I'm encouraged because, at NRB, which we've met at and we always go to, and it's always seemed to me the very churchy crowd, so
Yeah.
it's man, but even the people I've met there are like, no, we want to push the envelope. We got to go out there into the world. We got to go.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Square,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing when I say it, but when some distributor that you just don't expect to say that is starting to say that. So it's moving, it's shifting, but it's still new territory. So you're right, actually, it is, because we've gotten to that city, and now you're going past that. We're going past that city, so we know it exists, but so we know it exists, like we believe in it, but we can't prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can. It's starting to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what some of the movies have done, but they're getting better, and they're going more for the world, and so we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting
Yeah.
there. I bet y'all didn't know y'all was gonna get preached out like this. They're like, we just thought this was on the set. We didn't know this is a Jesus thing, man.
who he is.
Yeah, well, Randall, I mean, we could talk all day on
Yeah, we
all of
could.
this, and we have talked hours and hours on all of this, and how we can help find solutions
Yeah.
to what we find to not be at the levels that we would like for it to be. And that's what I just encourage our audience today is, like, if you have that in your belly, if you have a fire in your belly to do something in this industry, step out, do it.
Yeah, do it.
There's no better
But do
time
it right.
than now. Yeah,
Please do it right.
yeah, do it in
Please
the right
don't
way.
do it wrong to where
Yeah,
your uncle doesn't want to ever invest in a movie again because you screwed
Yeah.
it up.
yeah, yeah.
Get with the right people and get it done right. There's a model that can work.
Yeah,
So,
and do the research. Look into things. Don't just take the
Yeah.
normal answer. Really think outside of the box and try to find your way in it. But finding solutions for what we feel is not up to par is what we talk about often here
Right.
at the studio. How do we move the needle? How do we become part of a solution instead of a complaint? Because it's easy for everybody to complain. It's not
Right.
easy for everybody to come up with a solution. So around here we talk a lot on solutions. We talk a lot on, like, okay, what can we do and how can we do that really well?
Right.
And that's just what I encourage others. Like, what can you do? What do you have? And then how do you do that well? So
Well, that's what's so fast. What's great about what you're doing with this podcast and everything is because you have people that are doing it. You know, so and that's that's a lot of it is just proving it can be done. If people watch this and they go, wait a minute, that can be done. That has been done. Wait a minute, we can do this. You know, so
Yeah.
that's the encouragement that you are
Yeah.
giving with this show. You know,
Yep.
so
Sure.
thank you.
yeah.
Randall, we thank you for being here.
Oh,
We do. It's always
I
fun
appreciate you inviting me.
to sit
come
with
back.
you and hear your story and encourage others and love what you're doing. How for those that are watching, how can they follow you, be involved with you, or
You got to find me through the prison website. No, I'm just joking. So, no, yeah, gosh, I mean, look up my ministry, Save Savage
Yeah.
Ministries, SaveSavageMinistry.com, Save Savage Ministries on Facebook. We do the Save Savage Sunday services and all that. That'd be great. We're always doing something with that. We've got a cool show that we're trying to do right now, a reality show. And then Americonic, Americonic.com. Go subscribe even if you don't pay, or join even if you don't subscribe. Check it out, and so that you're in the system, so that we can update you, because we're getting closer to a real hard launch. We've soft launched. We have subscribers. We have content. You can go on and watch Bonanza and whatever, all kinds of stuff. So it works. It functions. We're there, but we just need to upload a ton of content to make everybody happy and make it worth their money, and then get crazy with the original content, because we are going to fix this model, or we're going to fix the distribution model, because we are aware of those movies that Netflix doesn't want or PureFlix doesn't want, but 80% of America wants to see. That's Americonic. That's what it's going to be. So just look that up, and I'm pretty easy. I'm pretty easy to find. Just type in my name on Google. It's worth a Google.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Well, I'm Amber Buto,
Kelly Leger.
and until we see you on Set Life.